In this lesson, we're going to learn page layout options. Now, when you open up your document, you'll need to go into these areas. And in this area here, we're going to pay special attention. So this one here called layout. Now, this is a ribbon, the page setup ribbon, where you'll need to know this information. Now, I'm going to talk about each component here. This part over here is called margins. Now, what page margins are, it's this white space from the paper to your text. So when we look here, you'll see here it says 2.5 centimeters from the top, 2.54 centimeters from the bottom, and the same for the left and the right. So what that means is that it's that many centimeters from here to the text, and then from here to the text. Now, when we click on this page margins, see what happens when I reduce it from 2.54 to narrow. You'll notice here that there's less space used in between those pages. Now watch what happens when I go back to normal. And there's more space. Now this next part here is called portrait or landscape. Now this one's a really useful one, especially if you want to change the look of it. So maybe instead of having your text like this, you can actually make it landscape. So let's show you what it looks like landscape. And there you go. So we've moved it from a portrait sheet to a landscape sheet. Now on the printout itself, it's almost as if you're changing the sheet from here to this way. Now we're looking at the next aspect, and I'm just going to put that back to portrait. This next aspect is what size will the paper be. So A4 is the normal size sheet that you would normally have for most printouts. If you want a really big poster, then A3 will be your size. If you're wanting a little bit smaller, A5 will probably be appropriate for you. Now, let's say that maybe I want to move it to landscape, but I also want it to be in 2 columns. That's where this one comes in handy as well. So watch what happens when I move it to columns. So now my work is on landscape and it's in 2 columns. Makes it a little bit easier to read as well. So I'm going to move it back to 1 column, and then I'm going to move it back to portrait. Let's have a look at the page breaks. Now page breaks is the point where you want to create a new page. So where it says here attachment, let's say I just want this to be on the first page, and I want this to be in the second page. So I'll click there, and then I'll enter a page break. And there you go. It puts it into a new page. Line numbers. Certain documents or types of documents usually require a line next to each line, or might even be helpful in terms of a play. And there are certain documents, like in the Bible, you see that there's numbers next to each section. This kind of acts as a guide as well. So this is where this feature is good. You'll notice that there's a number next to each new line. And even if I go space, 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 it's easier to navigate. So if you were to put a line in there, line numbers, you could easily say to someone that you're talking for a document, hey, look at page line 60, that's where we're reading from. And last but not least is hyphenation. A lot of organizations use hyphenation to make sure that they fill a lot of space on the paper. So let's try that out. I'm going to put hyphenation automatic. And what happens is, instead of moving this whole word, for example, this word, into another line, it fills up the page and then puts a dash to move on to the next line. So let's have a look at that word empathetic without the hyphenation. So empathetic is here, and then when we hyphenate it, and there you go. So I'm going to undo that. So give it a try. Using this document, try all these features, and feel free to change it to whatever orientation or whatever margins that you're wanting to change, just to see the effect that it has.